Jake Morrison sat in the giant metal chair that was way too big for him. The chair was made for aliens twice his size, but humans had learned to make do with what they got. He looked around the huge room, where hundreds of different alien species argued and shouted at each other. This was the Galactic Council, and today was just like every other day for the past 30 years. The room was loud, really loud. The Zephyrians were the worst. They looked like giant lizards with too many teeth, and they never stopped talking about their wars and victories. Right now, their leader was standing on a platform in the middle of the room, waving his clawed hands and roaring about something. Lisa Parker sat next to Jake. She was his helper and had been working with him for 10 years. She was writing notes on a small computer, just like she always did. Lisa wrote down everything that happened in these meetings. Every word, every argument, every decision. The aliens never asked to see her notes, so they never knew what she was really writing. On Jake's other side sat Ryan Brooks. He was a soldier, but he wore a nice suit instead of his uniform. Ryan was there to watch and listen. He had been doing this job for 8 years, and he had seen a lot of things that worried him. The 3 humans were the only ones from Earth in this giant room. They represented all of humanity in the galaxy, but nobody really cared what they thought. The aliens saw humans as the new kids who should sit quietly and learn from their elders. Jake had been Earth's main speaker for 12 years. He had learned to be patient. He had learned to smile when aliens said mean things about humans. He had learned to say thank you when the Council gave Earth jobs that nobody else wanted to do. Most of all, he had learned to watch and wait. The Zephyrian leader was still shouting. His name was something with too many clicking sounds for humans to say right. He was angry because someone had attacked their mining ships in the far parts of the galaxy. He wanted the Council to send warships to protect Zephyrian property. "We are the strongest fighters in the galaxy," the Zephyrian roared. "But we should not have to fight alone. The Council must help us." Other aliens started shouting too. The Nexari were tall and thin with silver skin that sparkled under the lights. They thought they were smarter than everyone else because they had good computers. Their speaker stood up and said the Zephyrians were being stupid. The Nexari wanted to send spy ships instead of warships. The Kelthans were the oldest species in the Council. They looked like tall humans, but with purple skin and no hair. They always talked about wisdom and patience, but they were just as greedy as everyone else. Their elder started giving a long speech about how the Council should think carefully before making any decisions. Jake listened to all of this and felt tired. It was the same argument they had been having for months. Different words, same problems. Everyone wanted something, but nobody wanted to give anything up. While the aliens argued, Jake thought about Earth. His home planet was doing well. Really well. Humans had built cities on 12 different worlds. They had factories that made things the aliens needed. They had farms that grew food for dozens of species. They had hospitals that saved alien lives every day. But the aliens in this room did not think about any of that. They saw humans as helpers, not partners. They gave orders and expected humans to follow them. When human ideas worked, the aliens took credit. When things went wrong, they blamed the humans. Lisa touched Jake's arm and showed him her computer screen. She had written a message. "The vote is coming soon." "Are you ready?" Jake nodded. He had been ready for this moment for a very long time. The arguments were getting louder. The Valdorians had joined the fight now. They looked like giant crabs with too many legs. They were angry because their trade routes were being attacked too. Soon, half the room was shouting at the other half. The council director was a Nexari named Vexfar. He was supposed to keep order, but he was not very good at his job. He finally got tired of the noise and hit a big button on his desk. A loud sound filled the room, and everyone got quiet. "We must vote," Dexter said in his cold, mechanical voice. "The Outer Rim territories need protection. We will decide how to help them." Jake knew what was coming. The Council would vote to send human ships to protect alien property. Human soldiers would risk their lives to keep alien businesses safe. And if any humans died, the aliens would say it was for the good of the galaxy. This had happened many times. Before, humans always did the dangerous jobs. They fixed broken space stations. They explored dangerous planets. They fought pirates and smugglers. They did all the hard work while the aliens made the important decisions. The voting started. Each species had one vote, no matter how big or small they were. The Zephyrians wanted military action. The Nexari wanted spy missions. The Kelthans wanted more meetings to talk about the problem. Jake waited for his turn. When Nexfer called on the human representative, the room got a little quieter. Not because they respected humans, but because they were curious. Humans almost never spoke during votes. They usually just agreed with whatever the majority wanted. Jake stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, and he looked very small next to all the giant aliens around him. But he had learned that sometimes being small meant people did not see you as a threat. "The human delegation has heard all the arguments," Jake said in a calm voice. "We understand the problems in the Outer Rim territories. We know that action must be taken." The aliens nodded. They expected Jake to offer human ships and human soldiers to solve their problems. That was what humans always did. "However," Jake continued, "we need to talk to our government on Earth before we can make any promises. We request a break in this meeting so we can contact our leaders." The room was very quiet now. This was not what the aliens expected to hear. Humans never asked for delays. They always agreed to help right away. Dexter looked annoyed. "How long do you need?" "Just 1 hour," Jake said. "We will have an answer for you then." "Fine," Dexter said with a wave of his hand. 1 hour break, then we vote." Jake, Lisa, and Ryan stood up and walked out of the room. The aliens were already starting to argue again before the humans reached the door. They were not worried about the human delay. They thought humans were just being careful and polite, like always. But if the aliens had been paying attention, they might have noticed something strange. As the 3 humans walked down the hallway, Lisa sent a short message on her computer. The message had only 5 words. "The children are coming home." The message went out on a secret channel that reached every human in the galaxy. Every human ship captain, every human colony leader, every human worker on alien worlds. They had all been waiting for this message for years. Jake Morrison smiled as they walked to their private office. After 30 years of being treated like servants, humanity was finally ready to make its own choices. The aliens thought they were in charge, but they were about to learn the truth. Humans had been planning this day for a very long time. They had been quiet and helpful and patient. They had built the systems that kept the galaxy running. They had solved the problems that the aliens could not solve. They had become so important that the galaxy could not work without them, but the aliens had never noticed. They were too busy fighting each other to see what the humans were really doing. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn what happened when humans decided to stop helping. Captain Ben Rogers was eating his breakfast when the message came through. He was on the bridge of the UES Horizon, the biggest human research ship in the galaxy. The ship was huge, almost 2 miles long, and it carried 3,000 people. Most of them were scientists and engineers who studied new planets and built things for the aliens. A message appeared on his personal screen. It looked like a normal work order at first, but Ben knew the special words. He had memorized them years ago when he first became a ship captain. Every human commander in space knew these words. but they all hoped they would never see them. Operation Quiet Step is now active, the message said. All ships return to Sol System immediately. Maintain radio silence. Ben put down his coffee cup. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. This was it. The day they had all been preparing. HFY. He pressed a button on his chair that sent a signal to his senior officers. Within 5 minutes, they were all on the bridge. We are going home, Ben told them, right now. Get everyone ready. His crew did not ask questions. They had trained for this day. Every human in space had trained for this day. They knew exactly what to do. The UES Horizon was in the Vega system, fixing a broken space station for the Kelphans. The aliens on the station did not know that humans were leaving. They thought Ben's ship was just doing routine maintenance. Send a message to the station, Ben ordered. Tell them we have finished our work and we are moving to the next job. It was not exactly a lie. They were moving to their next job. Their next job was going home to Earth and never coming back. Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening on hundreds of human ships. Captain Sarah Webb got the message while her ship was carrying food to a Zephyrian colony. She told the aliens that her ship had engine problems and needed to go to a repair station. Then she turned around and headed for Earth. Captain Mike Davis was leading a convoy of cargo ships near the Galactic Center. He received the message and immediately changed course. His ships were carrying rare metals that the aliens needed for their factories. Now those metals were going to Earth instead. The aliens did not notice anything strange at first. Human ships moved around the galaxy all the time. They carried supplies, fixed broken equipment, and transported people from one place to another. It was normal to see human ships leaving and arriving at different places, but this time was different. This time, none of the human ships were coming back. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, Amy Johnson was running the biggest power plant in 3-star systems. The plant provided electricity for 12 different alien colonies. Amy had been in charge of the plant for 6 years, and she knew every machine like it was her own child. When she got the message, Amy began shutting down the reactors one by one. She did it slowly and carefully, so the aliens would not lose power all at once. She told the alien workers that the plant needed routine maintenance and would be back online in a few days. But we need full power for the mining operations, said Kefiner, her Kelphin assistant. He had worked with Amy for years and trusted her completely. The backup generators will handle the basic needs, Amy said. We should have everything fixed soon. She felt bad about lying to Kefiner. He was a good worker and had become something, like a friend, but Amy had her orders. More important, she had her principles. Humans were tired of being taken for granted. Amy and her team packed their most important equipment and personal belongings. They left detailed instruction manuals for the alien workers, but those manuals would not help much. The power plant used human technology that was too complex for other species to understand. Without human engineers to run it, the plant would break down within weeks. At the medical research station near Proxima Centauri, Dr. Helen Davis was doing something even more difficult. She was copying 30 years of medical research and moving it to secure human databases. Her work had created cures for diseases that killed millions of aliens every year. Her genetic therapy programs were used in hospitals across the galaxy. Helen worked through the night with her team of human doctors and scientists. They transferred terabytes of data to hidden servers that only humans could access. Every breakthrough, every cure, every life-saving treatment was being quietly removed from the alien medical networks. Are we really doing this? Asked Dr. Peter Grant, Helen's research partner. These treatments save lives. Alien lives. And our research will continue to save lives, Helen said. Human lives. We gave them our knowledge for 30 years, and they treated us like lab assistants. Now they can figure out how to save their own people. Helen felt sorry for the alien patients who would suffer when the treatments disappeared. But she felt more sorry for all the human doctors who had worked without recognition, and all the human scientists who had been ignored when they tried to contribute to important decisions. Back on the council station, Ryan Brooks was coordinating the most dangerous part of the operation. He and his team of human technicians were removing critical parts from the station's computer systems. They worked during the night shift when most of the aliens were sleeping. "How much more time do we need?" asked Sergeant Katie Bell, Ryan's second in command. 2 more hours, Ryan said. "We need to pull the quantum cores from the main computer and the backup system. Without those, their computers will not work." Katie nodded and went back to work. She was removing memory banks from the navigation computer. The aliens would still be able to fly their ships, but they would not be able to plot courses through hyperspace without human-made navigation systems. The work was dangerous. If the aliens caught them, they would be arrested for sabotage. But Ryan and his team had security clearances that let them go anywhere in the station. The aliens trusted humans to take care of technical problems. They never imagined that humans might be the ones creating technical problems. "We are like ghosts," Ryan whispered to Katie as they carried another computer core to their transport ship. "We are walking through their house, taking everything we built, and they do not even see us." All over the galaxy, humans were disappearing. Not all at once, but steadily and quietly. The evacuation had been planned for years. Every human knew where to go and what to take. They left behind basic supplies and equipment, but they took all the advanced technology that only humans understood. On the agricultural station that fed the Nexari home worlds, the human farmers shut down the automated growing systems and loaded their ships with seed banks and genetic samples. The station could still grow food, but not nearly enough to feed billions of aliens. On the mining platforms in the asteroid belts, human engineers removed the control systems from the mining robots. The robots would continue to work for a while, but without maintenance and updates, they would break down quickly. On the communication relay stations that allowed faster-than-light messages across the galaxy, human technicians quietly removed the quantum transmitters. Alien civilizations would still be able to talk to each other, but much more slowly and with less reliability. Every human facility, every human-operated system, every human-designed technology was being systematically shut down or removed. Humans worked quietly and efficiently. They did not destroy anything, and they did not hurt anyone. They just took their things and left. The aliens would not understand what was happening until it was too late. They had become so dependent on human technology and human expertise that they could not imagine their civilization working without it. But humans had been planning for this day since they first joined the Galactic Council. They had built backup systems that only humans knew about. They had created hidden copies of important data. They had trained their people to work without alien oversight. Most important, they had learned to think of themselves as independent, not as junior partners in someone else's empire. Admiral Kyle Turner commanded the human fleet that protected the outer borders of Council space. His ships hunted pirates and stopped smugglers. When he got the message, he ordered his entire fleet to return to Earth immediately. "What about the patrol routes?" asked his second officer. "Not our problem anymore," Kyle said. "Let the aliens protect their own borders." As human ships disappeared from patrol zones, alien pirates began to notice. For the first time in decades, rich cargo ships were traveling without human escorts. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place, but the humans were no longer concerned with galactic security. They were going home. Council Director Thexver stared at the empty chairs where the human representatives had been sitting 3 days ago. The meeting hall felt strange without them, not because humans were important, but because they had always been there. For 30 years, the 3 humans had sat quietly in their 2 big chairs, taking notes and listening to debates. Now the chairs were empty, and nobody knew where the humans had gone. "This is very unusual," Thexver said to his assistant. "Humans do not miss council meetings. They are always very careful about following rules." His assistant, a young Nexari named Kil Moss, was reading reports on her computer tablet. "Sir, we are getting strange messages from across the galaxy. Many human facilities have gone silent in the past few days." Thexver looked at her with confusion. "What do you mean? Gone silent?" "They are not answering communication requests. Their status reports have stopped coming in. Some of our people are saying that humans are abandoning their posts." This was impossible. Humans did not abandon their posts. They were the most reliable workers in the galaxy. If a human was supposed to be somewhere, they would be there. If they were supposed to send a report, they would send it on time. "Get me a full status report on all human operations," Thexver ordered. "I want to know what is happening." The report took 6 hours to complete. When Kil Moss brought it to him, Thexver could not believe what he was reading. Over 400 human facilities had stopped responding to communications. Thousands of human workers had left their jobs without explanation. Entire colonies that depended on human services were reporting equipment failures and supply shortages. "This cannot be right," Thexver said. "Check the numbers again." But the numbers were correct. Humans were disappearing from their jobs all across the galaxy. Not just a few humans, but all of them. Every human ship, every human facility, every human worker was involved in what looked like a massive coordinated evacuation. General Vex Tar of the Zephyrian military was the first alien leader to understand that something serious was happening. His people had been expecting human transport ships to deliver weapons and supplies to their frontier colonies. The ships had not arrived, and nobody could contact the human shipping companies. "Where are supplies?" Vexstar demanded during an emergency meeting with other council leaders. "My colonies are running out of food and ammunition." "We are investigating the situation," Thexver said. "There seems to be some kind of communication problem with human operations." "Communication problem?" Vexstar roared. "Half the galaxy depends on human logistics networks. If humans have stopped working, we have a crisis." The Kelthan elder, Mordain, spoke in his usual calm voice. "Perhaps the humans are simply reorganizing their operations. They are very methodical people. I am sure they will return to their duties soon." But Kil Moss had been studying the situation more carefully. She had noticed patterns in the human disappearances that worried her. The humans were not just leaving randomly. They were leaving in a specific order, starting with the most important facilities and working their way down to smaller operations. "Director," she said quietly, "I think the humans are not coming back." "What do you mean?" "Look at the pattern. They evacuated their research stations first, then their industrial facilities, then their communication networks. This is not random. This is planned." Thexver studied the data more carefully. Kil Moss was right. The human evacuation was following a precise schedule. First, they had removed their most advanced technology. Then they had shut down critical infrastructure. Finally, they had withdrawn their personnel. "But why?" he asked. "Why would humans leave?" "We gave them good jobs and important responsibilities." The answer came from an unexpected source. The power grid on Kepler 442b had failed completely. The massive fusion reactors that Amy Johnson had been running were now offline. The alien workers, who had been left behind, could not restart them. The humans left instruction manuals, reported the Kelvin supervisor from the planet. But the manuals are too complex. We do not understand the technology well enough to operate it safely. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human-designed equipment was failing, and alien workers could not fix it. The automated factories that built starship components had stopped working. The agricultural stations that grew food for billions of aliens were producing less than half their normal output. We need to contact the humans immediately, HFY declared. We need to offer them better terms to come back. But how do you contact people who have cut off all communication? Human communication networks were down. Human ships were not responding to signals. The humans had not just left their jobs. They had completely isolated themselves from the rest of the galaxy. What about their home system? Suggested Kilnas. Could we send a message to Earth? HFY shook his head. The Sol system is protected by ancient treaties. No alien ships are allowed to enter human space without permission. We would need to request a diplomatic meeting through official channels. Then do it, General Vextar said. My people are starting to panic. Food shipments have stopped arriving. Our factories are shutting down. If humans do not return soon, we will have serious problems. HFY sent the request, but he did not expect a quick response. Humans were always very slow about diplomatic procedures. They liked to have meetings about having meetings. They would probably take weeks to decide whether to talk to the council. But while they waited for a human response, the galaxy continued to fall apart. The Nexari discovered that their advanced computer networks were failing. The quantum processors that made their systems so powerful had been designed and built by humans. Without human technicians to maintain them, the processors were breaking down one by one. Our computational capacity is dropping by 5%. Every day, reported the Nexari science minister. At this rate, we will lose our technological advantage within months. The Valdorians found that their trade routes were being attacked by pirates. Human patrol ships had been protecting merchant vessels for decades. With the humans gone, smugglers and raiders were becoming bold. We have lost 12 cargo ships in the past week, a Valdorian trade representative reported. The humans always kept the shipping lanes safe. Now they are very dangerous. Even the Kelvins, who prided themselves on their wisdom and self-sufficiency, were having problems. Their agricultural worlds depended on human-designed terraforming equipment to maintain their atmospheres. Without regular maintenance, the equipment was starting to fail. Our air recycling systems are operating at only 60% efficiency, reported a Kelvin environmental engineer. If we cannot get human technicians to fix them, our colonies will become uninhabitable. The scope of the crisis was becoming clear. Humans had not just been workers in the galactic economy. They had been the foundation that everything else was built on. Their technology kept the lights on, the air clean, and the food growing. Their ships carried supplies and protected trade routes. Their expertise solved problems that other species could not even understand. For 30 years, the aliens had taken all of this for granted. They had assumed that humans were just happy to have jobs and would always be available to do whatever needed to be done. They had never considered what would happen if humans decided to stop helping. Now they were finding out. How did we not see this? HFY asked during a private meeting with his closest advisors. How did we not realize how important humans were to our civilization? They were always so quiet, Kilmas said. They never demanded credit for their work. They never asked for special treatment. They just did their jobs and solved problems. And we ignored them, HFY admitted. We treated them like servants instead of partners. The final piece of the puzzle came when Admiral Kyle Turner, the human fleet commander, sent a message to the council. It was short and formal, but it explained everything. The human species hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. The message said, We thank the Council for 30 years of cooperation and wish all member species well in their future endeavors. The message was polite and respectful. It did not contain any complaints or demands. It did not ask for anything or threaten anyone. It simply stated that humans were leaving and would not be coming back. Dexfer read the message 3 times before he understood what it really meant. Humans were not just taking a break or making a protest. They were ending their relationship with the galactic community permanently. They planned this for years, he said quietly. Maybe decades. They built their own infrastructure, trained their own people, and prepared for complete independence. Then they just walked away. The galaxy that had seemed so stable and prosperous just a week ago was now facing the worst crisis in its history. And it was all because the species that everyone had ignored had decided to stop helping. The humans had been quiet, patient, and reliable for 30 years. But they had also been watching, learning, and preparing. Now they were gone, and the galaxy was discovering how much it had depended on the people it had never really noticed. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared, and the galaxy was dying. Not all at once, but slowly and steadily, like a machine running out of power. Every day brought new reports of systems failing, colonies going dark, and civilizations falling apart. Council Director Thex looked out the window of his office at the space station that had once been the center of galactic government. Half the lights were off now because the power systems were failing. The air recycling units made strange noises because nobody knew how to fix them properly. Even the artificial gravity felt weaker than it used to. "Sir, we have another emergency." "Report," his assistant Kil Moss said as she entered his office. She looked tired and worried. Everyone looked tired and worried these days. "What is it this time?" Dexter asked. "The Outer Rim territories. 17 more colonies have been abandoned in the past month. The terraforming equipment is breaking down, and the air is becoming poisonous. The colonists are evacuating to other worlds, but those worlds are having their own problems." Dexter nodded sadly. This was the same story he heard every day. The complex machines that humans had built to make planets livable were too complicated for other species to maintain. Without regular repairs and updates, the machines were failing one by one. What about the mining operations? Completely shut down. The automated mining robots stopped working 3 months ago. The Zephyrians tried to send their own technicians to fix them, but they made the problems worse. Now the entire dilithium mining industry has collapsed. The dilithium mines had been the cause of so many arguments in the council. Different species had fought over who would control them and who would get the profits. Now the mines were worthless because nobody could operate the human-designed extraction equipment. And the manufacturing centers? Production is down to less than 20% of normal levels. Most of the automated factories have shut down completely. The ones that are still working can only make simple products. No starships, no advanced electronics, no medical equipment. Dexter put his head in his hands. The galaxy had gone from a thriving civilization to a collection of struggling colonies in just 6 months. All because the humans had taken their knowledge and technology with them when they left. The economic collapse was only part of the problem. Without human ships patrolling the trade routes, piracy had become a serious threat. Merchant vessels were being attacked almost daily. Some areas of space were now too dangerous for civilian ships to travel through. The Zephyrians had tried to take over security duties, but their warships were designed for large battles, not for hunting pirates. The small, fast ships that humans had used for patrol work were much better suited for the job. But those ships were gone, and nobody else knew how to build them. "We need to try contacting the humans again," Dexter said. "We have to offer them something they want." "What could we possibly offer them?" Kilnos asked. "They already have everything they need. Their colonies are thriving while ours are failing. They have become completely self-sufficient. This was the most frustrating part of the crisis. The humans were not suffering like everyone else. Reports from the few traders who had encountered human ships showed that humanity was doing better than ever. They had new colonies, new technologies, and new trading partners that nobody had ever heard of. They have found 17 new species to trade with, Kilmas continued, reading from her reports. Species that were never part of the council. The humans are building their own civilization now, and they do not need us at all. A loud alarm started ringing throughout the station. Vexfor pressed a button on his desk to answer the emergency. Call. Director, we have a major power failure in Section 7, reported the station's chief engineer, a Kelphin named Tekmar. The main fusion reactor is overheating, and we cannot control it. Can you fix it? We are trying, but this is human technology. We do not fully understand how it works. The instruction manuals are too complex, and many of the spare parts are no longer available. This was happening everywhere. The humans had left detailed manuals and documentation for their equipment, but the manuals assumed that the readers already understood advanced human technology. Other species could follow the basic procedures, but when something went wrong, they were helpless. Do whatever you can, Vexver said. We cannot afford to lose another power reactor. He turned off the communication and looked at Kilmas. How many other space stations are having similar problems? Almost all of them. The Council has lost contact with 12 stations in the past 2 months. They either lost power completely or had to be evacuated. The government of the galaxy was literally falling apart. The Grand Council that had ruled hundreds of worlds for over 1,000 years was now struggling to keep its own headquarters operational. But the worst part was not the failing technology or the economic collapse. The worst part was how the different species were turning against each other. General Vexstar stormed into Vexver's office without being announced. The Zephyrian military leader looked angry and desperate. My people are starving, Vexstar said. The agricultural stations that fed our colonies have stopped producing food. We need to take emergency action. What kind of action? Vexver asked, though he already suspected what the general wanted. We need to raid the human colonies. Take their technology by force. Make them come back and fix our problems. That would be an act of war against humanity. So what? They declared war on us when they abandoned their responsibilities. Kilmas looked up from her computer. General, that would be impossible. Human space is protected by defense systems that we do not understand. Any ship that enters the Sol system without permission is destroyed automatically. Several pirate groups have already tried to attack human colonies. None of their ships returned. This was another surprise. The quiet, peaceful humans had somehow built military defenses that were stronger than anything the Council had ever seen. Ships that entered human territory without permission simply disappeared. Then we forced them to negotiate, Vexstar said. We threaten to attack their trade partners. We make them choose between helping us and protecting their new allies. Their new allies are species we have never heard of, Vexver pointed out. They are not bound by any council treaties. If we attack them, we might start a war with civilizations we know nothing about. Vexstar slammed his fist on the desk. Then what do you suggest? My people are dying. Zephyrian colonies that have existed for centuries are being abandoned. Our entire civilization is collapsing. He was not exaggerating. The Zephyrian Empire, which had once controlled over 100 star systems, was down to less than 30 habitable worlds. The rest had been evacuated due to equipment failures or resource shortages. We are all suffering, Exva said quietly. The Nexari have lost most of their computational power. The Kelphins can barely maintain their atmospheric processors. The Valdorians have lost half their trade to pirates. Everyone is in the same situation. Then we need to work together to solve this problem. But working together was exactly what the different species had never been good at. For 1,000 years, the Council had been a place where species competed for resources and influence. They had only cooperated when it benefited them individually. Now, when they desperately needed to share knowledge and resources to survive, old rivalries and suspicions were making cooperation almost impossible. The Nexari blamed the Zephyrians for starting the crisis by making too many demands on human labor. The Zephyrians blamed the Kelphans for being too slow to recognize the problem. The Kelphans blamed everyone for taking human help for granted. "We should have treated them better," Kilmas said quietly. "The humans worked for us for 30 years, and we never really thanked them. We never gave them the respect they deserved." "They were well paid," Vextar said. "They had good jobs and safe working conditions. They were treated like servants, not partners," Kilmas replied. "Every time they tried to contribute ideas or suggestions, they were ignored. Every time they asked for recognition, they were told to be patient. We used their expertise, but never valued their opinions." Vexfer knew she was right. He remembered dozens of council meetings where human representatives had tried to speak, only to be cut off or dismissed. The aliens had seen humans as useful workers, not as equals. "It does not matter now," he said. "What matters is finding a solution." But deep down, Vexfer was beginning to suspect that there was no solution. The humans had not just left. They had moved on to something better. They had built their own civilization with their own rules and their own partners. The galaxy that the Council had ruled for so long was becoming a memory. The future belonged to whoever could adapt to the new reality. And so far, only the humans had proven they could do that. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy, and the universe looked completely different now. The great council chambers on Nexus Prime were empty most days. The lights flickered because the power systems were failing. The air smelled stale because the recycling units had not been properly maintained in months. Director Vexver, who now called himself just coordinator because the formal council no longer existed, sat alone in his office. Through his window, he could see the dark shells of abandoned space stations floating in the distance. Once, this system had been the busy center of galactic government. Now it was a graveyard of broken dreams and failed technology. The reports on his desk told the same story as always. Another colony evacuated. Another star system gone dark. Another species reduced to a handful of struggling worlds. The Galactic Council that had ruled for over 1,000 years was now just a memory. "Sir?" his assistant Kilmas said as she entered the office. She looked much older than her years. The stress of watching civilization collapse had aged everyone quickly. "We are receiving a transmission from the Sol system." Vexver's hearts stopped for a moment. After 2 years of complete silence, humanity was finally answering their desperate messages. He had sent hundreds of requests for communication. He had offered everything he could think of: full partnership in a new government, complete control over council territories, even tribute payments if humans would just come back and help. "Put it through immediately," he ordered. The holographic projector in his office activated for the first time in months. Most of the time, there was not enough power to run the advanced communication systems. But for this message, Dexver had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to save energy. A woman appeared in the hologram. She was middle-aged with short brown hair and kind eyes. She sat in what looked like a comfortable office with a beautiful blue and green planet visible through a large window behind her. Dexver recognized the planet as Earth, though it looked more vibrant and healthy than he remembered. "I am President Carol Stevens of the United Earth Federation," the woman began. Her voice was calm and confident. "We have received your requests for assistance and negotiation. After careful consideration, Humanity has decided to respond. Exfer leaned forward in his chair. This was it. Finally, humans were willing to talk. Maybe there was still hope for the galaxy. We wish to inform the former Galactic Council that humanity is doing very well. President Stevens continued. Our colonies are thriving. Our research programs continue to advance. Our people are happy and prosperous. We have established peaceful relations with 23 new species that were never part of the council structure. We have discovered 18 habitable worlds that will support human civilization for thousands of years to come. The president paused and seemed to look directly at Thexfer through the transmission. We also wish to inform you that we hold no anger toward any former council species. Our departure was not motivated by revenge or hatred. It was simply our recognition that our civilizations had grown in different directions. We chose to build our own future among the stars. Exfer felt hope growing in his chest. If humans held no anger, maybe they could be convinced to help. Maybe they would be willing to share their technology or provide assistance to the struggling alien civilizations. However, President Stevens said, and her voice became slightly firmer, we must respectfully decline all requests for technological assistance, resource sharing, or renewed diplomatic relations. Humanity has learned the value of independence, and we intend to maintain our sovereignty. The hope died in Exvor's chest like a candle being blown out. We understand that our departure has caused difficulties for the former council species, the president continued. We genuinely wish you well as you adapt to your new circumstances. We believe that every species has the strength and wisdom to solve their own problems when they put their minds to it. The message ended with a simple statement. We wish you peace and prosperity in your future endeavors. The hologram faded, leaving Thexvar staring at empty air. They had offered humanity everything: power, territory, wealth, partnership. And humanity had politely, definitively, said no. Timos stood quietly by the door. Sir, should we try to send a response? No, Thexvar said quietly. I think we have our answer. In the months that followed, the scattered remnants of this former council species began to accept their new reality. The galaxy was no longer the unified civilization it had once been. It was now a collection of separate species, each struggling to survive on their own. Some species adapted better than others. The Kelphans, with their philosophical nature, accepted their reduced circumstances as a lesson in humility. They focused on meditation and simple living, finding peace in smaller, quieter communities. Perhaps we relied too much on technology, said Elder Mordain during one of their few remaining interspecies communications. Perhaps it is good for us to remember how to live simply. The Zephyrians had a harder time adapting. Their proud warrior culture could not accept defeat, even when the enemy had never actually fought them. They continued to raid and attack each other until their empire split into dozens of small warring clans. We should have conquered the humans when we had the chance, General Vextar said during his final transmission before his clan was destroyed in a civil war. We should have taken their technology by force. But even Vextar knew that was impossible. The few groups that had tried to attack human colonies had simply disappeared. Humanity's defenses were far more advanced than anything the Council had ever developed. The Nexari took a different approach. Their logical minds allowed them to study what they called the Great Silence, the 2-year period, when humanity had systematically removed itself from galactic civilization. They analyzed every detail of the human departure, trying to understand how such a massive operation had been executed so perfectly. It was the most elegant withdrawal in recorded history, reported Chief Analyst Veltar. They removed themselves completely while causing minimal direct harm to other species. They left instruction manuals and basic supplies. They even continued to send food aid to some colonies during the transition period. They were more considerate to us during their departure than we ever were to them during their service. Nexari studies revealed the true scope of human planning. The evacuation had been prepared for at least 10 years, possibly longer. Humans had built hidden supply caches, established secret communication networks, and created backup systems for every important technology. They were never really dependent on us, Veltar concluded. We were dependent on them. They could have left at any time after their first decade in the Council. They stayed for 20 more years, probably hoping that the relationship would improve. When it became clear that we would never treat them as equals, they quietly prepared their exit. Meanwhile, in the Sol system and beyond, humanity continued to grow and prosper. The UES New Horizon, commanded by Admiral Lisa Parker, explored star systems that the old Council had never even known existed. Her crew of 800 humans represented the largest deep space mission in human history. Course plotted for the Andromeda approach vector, reported her navigation officer. Take us out, Lisa ordered, and maintain communication silence until we are beyond the galactic rim. As the New Horizon disappeared into hyperspace, Earth's radio telescopes detected the usual signals from the former Council territories. Desperate messages asking for help, pleading for assistance, begging for any response. The technicians recorded the transmissions and filed them away, but no one bothered to translate them anymore. Humanity had found something better than being needed by ungrateful partners. They had found independence, respect, and the freedom to choose their own destiny among the stars. On Earth, President Stevens stood in her garden and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, human ships were discovering new worlds and meeting new species. Somewhere out there, human scientists were making breakthroughs that would benefit all of humanity. Somewhere out there, human families were building communities. That would last for generations. The aliens had taught humanity an important lesson, though probably not the one they had intended. They had taught humans the difference between being useful and being valued. They had shown humans what it meant to be taken for granted. But most importantly, they had taught humans that sometimes the best response to being ignored is not to demand attention, but to quietly build something so amazing that the people who ignored you realized too late what they had lost. The galaxy was vast and full of possibilities. Humanity had learned to walk away from relationships that did not serve them, and in doing so, they had found their true place among the stars. The former Council species would eventually rebuild their civilizations, though they would never again reach the heights they had achieved with human help. Some would learn from their mistakes and become wiser. Others would repeat the same errors with new partners, but humanity would not be there to watch. They had moved on to bigger and better things, leaving behind only the memory of what the galaxy had lost when it failed to appreciate what it had.